I guess I should put it on my chart. I don't see edits. That's right. No edits. Just don't like marks. Sorry.
You're fine.
There's so much stuff. I don't know what to do with it.
That one's mine. This one is mine. I got that one out of my...
I turned this in now, so I was ready.
How come you get them out? That's my own. Works just fine. You'll be okay. I did realize that only
I really hope I'm not in there.
I thought I was too. He's like, well, I'll be here for this meeting. I told him and everything. He's like, what do you mean? Apologize for the wait, guys. My computer's being a little slow. Really slow. Okay, I think we're ready. I want to welcome everybody to our regular session of the Uintah County School District Board meeting. If you want to go ahead and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first item on our agenda tonight is to adopt the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Madam Chair, members of the board, may I make one change to the agenda? Recommend that you add an executive session after item 12. Actually, probably after item 10.
Okay.
So item 11 needs to be an executive session.
Okay.
To discuss personnel.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes, so we'll have an executive session at the end of the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next item on our agenda is our consent agenda. Tonight we've got our minutes, our payment of the bills, approve our social emotional learning program, our special services related service contracts. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on that?
Madam Chair, I need to accuse myself from check number 8388.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So we're down to our presentations, which is our BOCES agreement. I was like, I didn't see you back there, Dan.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here. I'm Dan Mayer. I'm the Executive Director for Region 5 BOCES. I once worked here and I don't see as many familiar faces, and so I'm growing a need to introduce myself. Each year as we're getting ready, he's already up. I have a couple presentations. I'm not going to go through all of them. I know you guys have a busy agenda, but I was debating on which one I wanted to go through. But essentially each year we come out, we have member districts, which you are one of, and we make our official mill levy request. I submitted this PowerPoint, the official letter from our board, which Mr. Dan Wheeler serves on behalf of your board with our other member districts, and want to go through some information. I have a lot of information to share, always kind of juggling what's the information the board would like to know. So any questions are open. You can ask me anything you like. I've had some really interesting dialogue as we're going through some of the changes that we're making as an organization. So we're changing our vision and mission, and we're doing some rebranding to ourselves. There are some things that haven't been done since probably Region 5 BOCES was first built in the early 70s, and so we wanted to change our vision and mission to meet what our new vision and mission is, and it's creating and providing educational services to our member districts. That was something that when I became executive director 6 years ago, it's been to this. I was the special ed director here and I transitioned there. I didn't know the executive director. I didn't know the providers up there, and I felt like there was maybe not as many services that were being offered, and I went up there and said I'd like to change that, and that's what's my mission has been, is to be able to create and provide those solutions to our district's educational challenges. And how we do that is through flexible or collaborative and professional resources to support implementation and ensure improved student education is at the heart of all of our decisions. What we do is we have a network. One of the services we provide, probably the most known, is a network of accredited schools for disabled students. Those are our campuses. The two campuses that would serve you primarily would be Hayden Peak Academy, which is a day school that operates here for 5 years. I got the job, I worked here, I worked in Mountain View, I said I need a day school here. So we worked with the admin team to within 1 year create a new day school in our organization for this area. I'm proud to say this past year, I don't know if I'm proud to say, because we'd rather not have kids served in our facility, but all of the member districts in this area have used Hayden Peak. That's Mountain View, Lyman, Kemmer, and Evanston. And so we're really getting full utilization regionally from that, and of course Evanston and Mr. Williams has been utilizing us since we started. We've grown from a couple kids to we had 10, 11 kids this year at one point in that facility. CBARV Ranch is our residential program. Most people equate with with Region 5 BOCES. That is a residential program that serves disabled, challenged kids residentially. So when we cannot serve them and they need extra resources, that's where they are placed. We serve on a continuum of services in special ed called LRE. So it's the least restrictive environment. When teams think about services, they have to consider the placement. And sometimes we feel like, oh, a kid's there, it's good or bad. It's not good or bad. What it is what's appropriate for their needs. And so even the IEP system, so what we have done is created more options for the district to serve a kid more comprehensively. And one gap is services in the community where a student doesn't need to leave the community to get maybe more intensive care. And that's what we've been trying to do with our day programs. The other service that we're developing since I've started is more of a professional to provide more professionally trained outreach services, school psychologists, physical therapists, professional development for those hard to fill, hard to serve kids, where it's hard for one to justify maybe having a position. So we're trying to build out more of those services. I think right now it's hard to find those. There's a really lack of provider, and there's a large demand, and we're trying to say, how can we train people, develop our own, but everybody needs more of these professional positions. These are some of the things that we're doing currently. I will highlight a couple of them. Title IX, we were able to secure some grant funding to get 8 of our people trained as trainers for Title IX issues. What we're trying to do is, if you need extra investigators in that, we may have some additional resources, especially for our smaller districts. So we are trying to figure out how we can support in different ways when those needs come. The other one is the Safe Student Alliance Program. We collaborated with the Department of Ed to secure a $2 million grant to get every school in Wyoming trained on the comprehensive school threat assessment guidelines. It's a research-based approach to when a threat happens, how do you intervene on that? I believe UNO1 is participating in that, and that grant was really, and those are the type of things we want to provide. That training to help the resources. We will come in and provide threat assessments, we'll do the training, or we'll just give you the money and the tools to do it yourself. And that's how we've been working with districts across that. So those are some things we're proud of. These next ones, I promise I'll go quicker. Here's our funding sources to make it quick. Most of our funds are come through billable services. We get about 11% from mill funds. That's what I'm here to discuss tonight. And 9% is generated from grants. That 9% is a little bit of not accurate because the majority of that makes up the Safe School Alliance, and all that resource goes back to districts. So that doesn't offset our operation costs. We're bringing it in and actually providing those services back to school districts who want to participate. Expenditures, I like this. When I first started, I had CBAR-V, and we had 2 day schools. You can see that we've really expanded that service and offering a lot more of a variety, and we're continuing to figure out what district needs are and what are those things that are hard for you to do that we would love to take off your plate and provide for you in a way to help you meet the mission of what you want to do for your students in the school district. We primarily play in the area of special ed and those type of things because there's a lot of needs there, but we would definitely entertain going in other areas if there was something that we could do to support you in that way. For example, the Title IX. COVID impacted us greatly. From the beginning of COVID, we were up to about 30 kids. Teton County exploded. And we walked in, we lost a lot of kids because of all of that. We've been staffing, and then the housing just got out of control in Teton County. Wages increased, and so now we're struggling with a new challenge of staffing like everybody else, trying to pay competitively for the market, and trying to survive. Our day schools did pretty well, I'll have to say. They were chomping at the bit immediately. They knew we had kids in crisis, and they wanted to open the door so we could serve those needy kids that we served during those times. But financially, and because of our designation or lack thereof of a clear designation, we weren't able to get any COVID relief except for payroll protection that we were able to pay back. But other than that, of the relief, we weren't able to receive any of those, and we tried, and there's just some real statutorily legal, like what are we designated, that prevents us from getting those, and those would have been helpful through that. More, you can read this, that's not what I want to talk about. It impacted our financial, not being able to take kids is our revenue source because we can't find that. I was talking to some of your staff earlier. We have turned down, I think, 60, 80 kids in just even the last 6 months. There's such a demand for our services, and it's just becoming difficult because of a lot of funding issues and different things to provide that service, and that just kind of shows that that's a big revenue generator for us to be able to provide that, and that's just been a challenge, and I think how we're built, it does that. I wanted to talk a little bit, we do carry cash reserves. Cash reserves are, again, an amount that we have because we have to do our own facilities. This is a part of the presentation where I let you know we don't receive any state funding. So all of our facilities, capital construction, transportation, we either save up through the fees we have, or they're designated through the mill levies that we have, because they're very targeted at what they have, and that's what I want to talk to you about. We have a facility that's in our region that's in big need of some TLC. And I have an example of how our projections that we've done have been miscalculated due to some of the increased costs. We were going to re-site our facility. We budgeted, $250,000. We got the bids, it ended up being 1.2 million. So things have really changed in that, and so what we are doing, so I've created this in March. Some of these things have been decided, so let me tell you what we're doing. So what we're doing about that is we are finding out what the rules are about our ownership of our land up in CBRV, because a lot of people say, sell that. You got prime property. We can't. We can't sell it and make a dime off of it. So it was purchased with the idea that it's going to serve disabled population of students. And that land can be owned and operated and not given there as long as that's happening. So as those costs increase and it costs us more to operate, my board has started to ask, can we sustain this? What can we do? What are some other options, right? Go out and ask people, is this needed? Well, how many referrals we get in talking to districts who have kids who are not getting, there's a big demand. And so we need to start really thinking about how we're going to provide it, where we're going to provide it, because, or can we provide it? And those are the conversations we're really beginning, and we've implemented some things to see how that goes, but as this evolves, we're really thinking about how we're going to respond to these new challenges that we felt like we had a pretty good plan going in a few years ago, and as the world changed, it looking a little bit different, and I think we need to have some different conversations about what we need to do. Here's just some images. I encourage anyone, I've talked to people, please come up, visit, take a look at the students we serve, the facilities we're trying to serve. We need to get some wireless doors, but we have to change all the infrastructure in there, which costs, as you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. We don't get funding that way. So we either need to use mill funds, or we need to generate enough fees to cover those costs. And that's what we're trying to find to balance a business plan kind of budget to make sure we can sustain those efforts. One idea we were coming out and throwing out to our districts is that, long-term or short-term, we do have the option of the mill funds to help offset some of those operational costs. The mill funds are very specific in their use. They can't be used for salary. They can't be used for that. There really are operational costs, capital construction and those type of things. And that's what we always want to show you what we've done with those in the past. And we have some of those mill levy generated things that we have. And we have a lot of projects and we would like to do more, but we just can't find work now to get some of the things done. So as you can see, that deficit in some of those capital things, utilizing mill funds, can help really reduce that deficit. Here's another way to look at it in this way. I'll tell you right now, I've had a lot of good conversation. I encourage you to ask hard questions. I'm okay with that. I've had some board members say, what about some of let's talk about this mill fund a little bit. And that's what we really want to talk about, is how we're utilizing that. How should we? Are there other ways to access funding? If you know me or know of me, you know for the last 6 years, I've been looking for every funding source to provide us and provide the services back to you. I got a lot of doors shut. And I think there's some things that we're really looking at that I can help offset some of those costs. But until we can get some of those things changed, we're really left with charging fees and having the mill funds. And we're really having some discussion next year. Do we talk about mill funds and how we utilize those, and maybe figure out, can we do it just through fees? I think we're good for that. But we need to have, I guess what I'm asking all of our districts is to have, I want to have a business, kind of a plan, so I know that we can meet our financial obligations and the work that we need to do. And if we can make it through doing alternative means, I'm for that. We tried to bring a statute forward that would make us an LEA for very specific funding purposes. I would not compete for your LEA dollars. It would just say, when state has extra money, can they give it to me when it's appropriate for the students that I'm serving? Right now, they say I can't, because I lack the correct designation, hence the COVID money, hence a lot of money that we come to. And so if we could change some of that and we could get access to other state dollars, that could help us operate. And, so just trying to think of other ways that we know the need is there, we want to be mindful of the resources and be transparent with how we're coming up with this. So changing the negative trajectory, we've already done this. We haven't increased our rates since 2016. And this year we went to a rate proposal. We talked to everybody, tried to bring as many groups, emailing, met with the UCSD Sped director group and said, we want to create a business plan that's going to increase that and start leveraging these fees that we think can be recaptured through the special ed reimbursable to help offset some of these costs and have this so we can keep people employed and have those services available for you. A lot of inflation, I think you know that. Increased wages at C-Bar-V Ranch, they just got way out of whack. We weren't even in the same ballpark. We weren't even level. Our teachers work 30 more days than typical teachers do. In some cases, they weren't even making the same wage, working with very difficult students. And so we've changed that to get that more on par. We just want to be in the ballpark of the area that we're working in. So Hayden Peak should match what's happening here. They shouldn't have a Teton salary schedule. We match those people there. We do the same thing at Roosevelt. We do the same thing at Sunrise. We do the same thing at Spirit Mountain. We do the same thing at Natural Bridge. Again, I think recruitment, finding people, it's getting more competitive for these hard to fill positions, so we want to look at those areas to make sure that in the market, we're being competitive in that area. I've already talked to the BOCES as an LEA, interim topic. And then capital projects and major maintenance. I think those mill levy funds, with how we're utilizing those, and we are continuing to have conversations as we roll this out to get feedback and change, start talking about how we can make this a sustainable system that supports member districts and respond to the needs that you guys have. And so I've submitted a request. We request 0.2 of a mil each year. Districts can provide up to half a mil if they choose. I get often asked, what are districts doing? Some have decided to stay flat. Some have decided to do some increases. And I think we're continuing to figure out how do we utilize the mill levy and fee for services in a way that I think, we can sustain that long term. And I invite any questions you may have about that, and if there's anything else that you would like to ask.
So I do have a couple of questions on this.
Absolutely.
So I guess the first thing that I wrote to Dan a little bit, and I do sit on the BOCES board as well. Why Teton County? I mean, obviously the land was given, it was donated, but is there not other areas around here that would donate like property, or is there the ability to swap property like properties that is a nonprofit organization, that you have the ability to go someplace where the costs aren't so exorbitant, high on doing things?
Yep.
So have you looked into anything that direction?
Yes. So short answer is yes, we have. Especially as we saw all this happening and us having difficulty finding staff, we've been able to correct that a little bit. What we need to identify, so what we've started doing, our board, again, before Dan was part of it, we did a board retreat and they wanted me to figure out a sustainable business plan. What are we going to do with C-Bar-V residential program with what you've asked? And then this concept of regional services. But regional services can wait a minute. And so what we started doing is really asking people, is there a need? Is there a demand? Where can we go? I've reached out to the Department of Health, Department of Family Services, and have had some conversations. I've got so far to have a whole new budgeted stabilization unit that was proposed to higher ups. as a model. And I think they're working through that. I can say that we're working with one of the state agencies to possibly provide some of those educational services. And I've told them that the need for a CRV type service is in demand, and it's getting more difficult to sustain that level of service. So if there are opportunities to do CRV, whatever clever name we would call that, somewhere that we can provide that, or do something on a smaller scale, we should investigate. We need to find out how the land was purchased, what we can actually do or not. Most of what we have is hearsay. Most of what we have, and so we've gone into the taxation, we're pulling those records, we're gonna really find out what the deal is. We're also going in and we're having an architect come in and say, what is it gonna really cost now to do some of these things to get this facility to do that you need to do? We want to bring that back to our board, possibly a larger constituent of our member superintendents and special ed directors, and say, this is what it's going to be. We need to start making some decisions. The difficult part in what you're asking is, how do I fund creating a new program in a new location when I don't receive state funding? We'd have to figure out, do we increase everybody's mills to get some capital construction so we can build a new facility? I think we can do it. We need to figure out what the demand is, and we've just started this conversation because, and I'll tell you, I don't want to call out Mrs. Torres in the meeting, but I know you work with DFS, and there's a high demand to get kids in some services, and it's, so that's the complicated piece, is managing that, and we have an established effective program, but you're asking the right question, and we're asking the same questions, and we're starting to really dig into it. So we've adjusted some things to see if that will help with our staffing. We have some, we're gonna look at what we can do for some residential. I know Teton County's gonna do some of those things to help that. So we can take those kids and then see what we need to do. The other thing we're talking about is bolstering up our day schools. Can we take a harder student at our day schools? Can we start providing, if you know me and have talked to me about this, I want to create more community services. I would like to see all of our kids not leave home. Someone's like, we have a kid in Torrington who really needs CRV. They should have something in Torrington. That's 7 hours away. Do you know how hard that is to transition kids back home? It's hard and there's even some question about who we take and how we take it and how we're funded for that. And I think what I'm hearing loud and clear is I need to think about our member districts first, getting their needs served first, and then worrying about those, and that's, I think, what we're focusing on. But we need to, there's a lot of digging, because you would think some of that stuff would be handy, and some of those records are not really clear, and so we have to go way back and find that, and so that's what we're doing. But yes, I've already talked to other state agencies, let them know, so we're going to try to fix this and try to see if there's other rooms to grow. We do have a property in Rock Springs, an old Roosevelt school that we had. It was getting to a point that it was like, is it economical to fix this? It's kind of a money pit. And they lost a lot of enrollment, so we refurbished a school, and we pay rent to Sweetwater too, to provide a day school, a nice facility that they received. So we partner with districts to figure out how to create that. But we own that. It's a nice little piece of that could be beneficial to us. So we do have certain areas where we do have other options. And Sweetwater County seems they would enjoy if we did that. I think some of the things we're talking about, maybe there's things I've often brought up. I'll just say, I've brought up the state hospital to state agencies and saying, why can't I provide some educational services out of there and you help me with the residential? I'm having those conversations at the state level of saying we need to get more of these services out. I think I know how to do this component. This other aspect's very costly and very hard to do and has a lot of rules and regulations around it that make it challenging, right? Not a lot of, so there's a lot of challenges. It's been a mainstay program in our region for a lot of years, but things change. And I think we need to see what the future holds for how we provide those services and how a CRV needs to be. I think there's a need for that, but I agree, is this the right location? It was, Is it in our future? I think we need to have some conversations, and I'm willing to have those conversations. And other boards have asked me that, and I think it's a great question. Other?
No, I was going to be mean, but I'm going to be nice, so I'm not going to say anything. I understand you stole a couple of our teachers.
The unfortunate, that's all right.
Be mean, yes. Yeah, we've just lost a couple of really good
I know.
teachers. So congratulations to you, I guess.
Yeah,
So,
They stole him to begin with.
I know they stole him to begin with, so anyway.
I have a question. The fees you said have not been raised since 2016.
Yep.
Those fees come from parents?
Those fees come from school districts.
Oh, okay.
So primarily how we operate is, the BOCES mission is to provide special ed programming. So back in the day, when special ed services were first being introduced to the state, districts didn't have capacity. So they regionalized it to be able to provide that. As you were able to provide more of these services, that need went away and went down. So we didn't have to do as much of that. But one of the things that was always needed was a special ed school, where handicapped kids, I guess that old saying, but that's what it was. We were built to take handicapped kids. And as districts were able to take that, we morphed into taking more challenging, behavior disordered kids. In time, we started taking court-ordered kids who they didn't want to really criminalize, but needed special ed. They saw the disability as being more of a factor. And so we've really evolved, and I don't think we said, hey, how does that impact member districts? We kind of got here, right? And those wheels were turning before that. So the mechanism that we are funded is through a reimbursement model where we'll provide that service through a contract basis, and then you take that contract and you get your reimbursement through the special ed reimbursable side of your budget. And that's kind of the model that, even when I'm asking for different funding models, they say that's the model. So they turned me back to this model. So I think we should this year really talk about how to make that model more effective and efficient for us and what our needs are. And that's what I've been talking to some of these other directors and superintendents about.
Of the member districts, how many have you done this presentation for?
How many members?
Yeah, you're here.
12.
Okay.
You're my last one.
What is probably maybe one of the top one or two things that they've asked questions, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something that just kind of stood out from all of the member
Mill levy.
districts.
What are we getting for a mill levy? Right? We're taxing our constituents. What's it being used for? You know, when I can show that, people seldom have a problem, right, with that. I don't think in the past that my organization has been as transparent with that. Not that I found anything wrong. I can't come back and report any. And that was the first thing I did. I heard that loud and clear, and I just said, here's the books. And so I want to provide, but those who know me, and already Scott Ehlers was cursing me because he told me he didn't want to follow me because I told him I was going to be pretty long-winded. And he was right to worry about that. So that's the big thing. How do we benefit from that mill levy, right? Do we get enough bang for that buck and what we're contributing when maybe, like I have some small districts, like one of our member districts, they haven't placed a kid at CBRD. I don't know the last time, 15, 20 years? Right? I mean, you guys have used that since I've been here. So I mean, I could make that. But I have some that haven't. And then we have a lot of usage from non-members. Right? We're serving the state to some capacity, and we're using this. We try to I feel like that's a concern. That was a concern of mine when I was a director. I try to bring that up and say, hey, how do we solve this? And that conversation doesn't want to be had at the state, I feel like, often. And there's a growing demand, and some of those issues that I've tried to bring up and say, we got to solve this, are really causing the state, I think, some problems. And kids aren't getting served now because we weren't willing to have those conversations to figure out a common sense, feasible, right way to serve these kids, because we all can agree we have some kids who have really some high needs and they need this residential care. But how do we make sense, fund it in a way that people feel good about it, they understand it, and you're getting what you're paying for. And we want to make sure that is. So I think it's the conversation about mill funds, because I think there's been a removal from how does that fit into that equation. that's happened over time.
Is there an equality, if you will, amongst the districts, as in, this district's levies $1, this is $1?
Yes.
Or is it based on, this
Valuation.
district's got
Yeah.
20 and this
Our
one's got 10?
lowest will be $10,000 when they give $500,000. And our largest would be probably over $1 million if they gave $500,000. That, therein lies a problem when you want your benefit. So we actually, in our new fee structure, I should mention, based upon the amount you contribute, we're going to discount you based upon that to give you that value back. We heard that loud and clear in our new fee structure. If you contribute, we're going to try to kick that money back. We were even trying to think of a way to put that even back in general reserves if there was a way, or I don't know. Is there a way we can be creative to add value to that and utilize that? We would be good with that. We've talked about, there's been some serious conversation, not this year, because we don't have it budgeted. Hopefully not this year, it's your choice, of course. But in the future, I think we'd like to have a conversation generally about mill funds. I would be open to consider doing this without having to utilize mill funds, maybe only as an ad needed. Can we do a fee for service that gets generated back to the state to serve this in this contractual basis? And we eliminate that conversation and we think about it in a completely fee for service. I'm willing to look at that. I just need to be able to, I have a lot of capital construction needs that I don't know how to. There's some even legislators that feel like we should be part of that capital construction conversation. We educate Wyoming kids. I have a legislator tell me that. That's what people forget when we have this. These are Wyoming students. Look at the facilities we have. Look at your facility, right? Should that be just in this mill funds, or that's the questions that, we have needs, but no one really wants to volunteer. And I share some of those concerns depending on the mission that we do. And I think we got to figure that out. And I think if we figure it out and people feel good about it, whatever decision we make, we will do that way. I apologize for the teachers.
Is there a cutoff for decisions?
Huh?
Do you have in your decision-making process, is there we got to make this decision by this date, we got to make a decision by this date, otherwise are we kind
Well,
of...
July is the time that you assess all your mill funds, so we want to do that ahead of time. So you have that. Our board has approved some of the fee changes that we have done. We've taken that. We've gotten enough, conversations. I don't see that conversation as being done and over. I think that's an evolution of this conversation, because this is a big hornet's nest of a lot of things. I think we want to be smart about the decisions we make, because as you mentioned, we have some prime real estate in that area, and I would like to make sure we get something if we have to make some changes, and I think it's going to take us some time. And I think we'd like to see if we can still continue to serve at some capacity up there. We've made some changes, we're seeing some positive results. I think this next year in these conversations can really help guide us to what we need to do in the future and take this next evolution, these next steps to figure out how to provide these services in the most cost-effective way and provide the biggest benefit to you and being mutually beneficial to working. I want to make sure you guys are fully staffed. Staffing's at a crisis, and it stinks. It stinks. It stinks because we've had similar things happen. We've lost 8 to Teton County. We lost several. I mean, it's frustrating. I know, and I don't. Especially when it's member districts, it makes it hard. And I know when it's difficult. It's a difficult thing.
Madam Chair, members of the board, if I may, Trustee Du Bois, at our July budget hearing, you have to approve the mill. So that's really our drop dead date. We're requesting 2/10 of the mill for Seabar at that time.
That's what we've historically done in the past.
Is it sufficient? That's my question, I guess. Is it sufficient? I mean, clearly,
Yes,
you want the moon, but...
sufficient for now. I mean,
you know what I mean?
I'll always accept more money. Someone needs to kick me if I would have answered no to that. Thank you. Of course, but really, I think with what we've done with the fees, how we're trying to do that, be a little bit more mindful of how we're supporting that, with what we have, I think we're okay. I do. I think that would be suffice, and I want to further this conversation and really come up to talk about that a little bit more and really jump into that, and I think we're really starting those conversations. Many districts are talking about it. Teton County is even, they are with me, you know, other districts. So I mean, you're not alone in this conversation. I think we need some help as an organization, figuring out how to provide the services and find those resources, and maybe help us with some state agencies to say, hey, where are you at in this conversation? So.
Any other questions?
I'm good.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
Thank you, and if you ever have questions, let Mr. Thomas know. If something comes up, I'm happy to give him the information to provide to you. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Perfect,
Sorry
thank you.
for taking so long.
Okay, moving on to, sorry, our school reports. Who wants to share?
Okay.
Next. Nobody wants to share, move on.
Bueller?
It's over.
Bueller? Yeah, I know. Shouldn't be on there.
I just want to say thank you to the members of the board that came to graduation. It was fantastic. Had so many compliments from people, and feels good to have it over, to be honest. So anyway, it was an end to a good year, and so we're really thankful that everything went off okay, and so we're thankful to you board members as well. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mo.
Any other school reports? Okay, we'll move on to our discussion items. Our first item for discussion is our Eprd annual budget and operating agreement. Come on up.
I'm really glad to see that he's not in purple.
You know, last year when I came, I'm Scott Ehlers, Scott Ehlers, Eprd, and I'm the director there. Last time I came here, I was wearing a purple shirt, I remember.
We were just
I was just commenting on
You did
that.
question my integrity there. And so the funny thing, in August, I'm going to probably be more connected to Mountain View than I've ever been, so. But a couple other things, I know Dan Mayor's probably going to want a tea time tomorrow, and that's not happening. Yeah, dang right. Sorry, we're backed up. But anyway, I come tonight, and it's also in concerns with the mill levy, because we do partnership with Uintah County School District Number 1 with that. And what I've done in the past is I kind of took things for granted, and that was probably not real smart on my part. So what I did this year is I put together a list of why the mill levy exists and what we do for those different things. And so I'm definitely not going to go through each one of these things, but what I do need you to understand is the working relationship between the school district and the Parks and Rec is huge. There's a lot of things that go on, and so many more things than I had even anticipated until I just started to write everything down. We do sports, that's kind of our main show, and so, there's soccer at the Bear Meadows, there's turf programs, so the soccer field is great for them to use, and we do a lot of different things that just makes it good for everybody. And, we've got the ball field out here, which we take care of, and I know that's always a tipsy-turny thing there, but, we've done turf programs, we've done school functions, at the rec center, and I watch the little nuggets walk in there when they're, kindergarten on up, and they're going swimming, and they're using the gymnasium and the blow-up toys for them, and there's, I say there's not a cost, but there is a cost, because of the mill levy, there's the O&M there, but it's just a good partnership, and we thoroughly enjoy it. And I know that we work, pretty extensively with Bubba, in the gymnasiums and the volleyball, and I know that's taken a lot off of his plate so that he has time to do other things. And so, whatever we can do to help each other out, I think is in place. And if you ask me if the mill levy's enough, I'll say no. I'm not too proud there. But, it works out to about 0.07 of our budget percent is when that one rolls into place. And so I'm good with any questions you may have. This even takes place, the partnership even goes out into the golf course area. We'll do cross-country meets, and down in the Bear where we do EMS, the middle schools do their cross-country, and it's really good. And I'm probably not going to take 45 minutes, so.
Okay.
If you've got some questions, I'm more than happy to let those fly, and just whatever I can do.
I'm good.
Any questions?
I think we're good.
I don't
Okay.
have any questions, but I do appreciate everything that you do and working with you on the rec board and everything you do for the district. I think it is a great partnership.
It is. We appreciate that. And I say we, the whole village appreciates that. It's all of us.
Okay, I think that's it.
So do you have a color preference next year?
No,
touch
you're looking like Rock Springs or Kemmer or Jackson. We are red and blue over here in this little neck of the woods.
I'll
So
have to look at the
next time,
golf
would you
shirts.
please,
I probably
I
have
know
one.
you, since you coached, you have some of them colors in your.
I probably do.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
Okay, our next item for discussion is board minutes and list of all those policies. I'm not going to list them all out.
Board, if I may, just a reminder that the rec bill will be approved next month. Next month, in the contract, so. I'd like to take just a little step back and like to invite Mr. Dickerson forward with a new face.
Oh, yes, please do, for our school reports.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'd like to introduce my soon-to-be replacement, Travis Fackrell.
Welcome. Welcome. Welcome.
High hopes, and so far he's fitting in well.
Great.
Thank you all.
We're excited for you to join us.
Great.
Yeah, excited to be here.
You got 15 minutes to explain what you are and who you are and where you're from. The floor is yours.
I was born and raised in Wyoming. I've lived in Utah for just about 2 decades. I'm excited to be back in Wyoming. Really like transportation. I've been in it for just over about 10 years. So I'm really excited to be with the school district. This department I see is, George has done a great job. I already see I'm gonna have big shoes to fill, so I'm getting in and I'm running, and we'll see what we can do.
Great.
Have you found a place to live?
Well,
I'm not yet. I'm staying with family currently. We are chopping around.
Well, good luck.
Yeah. Everything's a little crazy right now.
So how much longer are you going to stay around with them, George? You still kind of showing them the ropes a little bit?
I'll be here through the 30th.
Okay.
Through the end of the month?
Yeah,
Through the end of the
we'll
month.
work together
Good.
on the state report.
All right. Good.
I'm not sure we can finish it, but we can at least have it set up so we can finish it.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much.
Things to do, yes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move
okay,
on to
Madam Chair, members of
policies.
the board, I was asked by Chairman Torres to kind of review our policy on school records, so I did go to the statutes originally, and kind of surprised how little there is there. So the first statute is 164403, meetings to be open, participation by public, and minutes. C is minutes of a meeting. I are required to be recorded but not published when from meetings when no action is taken by the governing body. 2 are not required to be recorded or published for day-to-day administrative activities of an agency or its office or employees. And then it does go into D, no meeting shall be conducted by electronic means or any other form of communication that does not permit a public to hear, read, and otherwise discern meeting discussion contemporaneously. Communications outside a meeting, including but not limited to sequential communications among members of an agency, should not be used to circumvent the purpose of an act. That gets into one of the things we talked about is the live streaming that we do. We're not in violation of any of that statute. The other statute is 21.3.109I. Keep minutes of all meetings at which official action is taken and record and a record of all official acts, including a record of all warrants issued against the monies belonging to the school district. The minutes and records shall be public records. And you guys know our minutes are public, especially after the board approves it. Our policy BDDG is minutes.
It's a mouthful.
I can tell you, you probably don't want me to read it to you, but we are meeting all expectations of that policy and now exceeding that with our live stream and the dual recordings that we make. I was going to bring a copy of the minute book that is the official minutes of our district. Very impressive. I mean, the minutes are very, very clear, well done. It's not word for word, but pretty darn close. One of the most interesting things is you can look at historically the records taken. Very interesting, what we paid for concrete in 1913 as compared to what we paid for concrete now. Very interesting, but exactly the same structure that we followed then that we do now. I tried to find every document that had anything to do with minutes. So administrative reports is board policy CL. Again, the idea that the superintendent is responsible to see that all legally required records and reports are made and submitted properly to the board of trustees, is kept informed of various programs, financial matters, and petitions concerning the school district. We do provide you the minutes of the previous board meeting to approve. That's when they become official. That's when they go into the book. We keep copious records of all that stuff. Now we have electronic records too. Policy KBA is public's right to know. It's just the idea that our records are open to the public upon a request. They can actually get copies of those records if they choose at an expense, basically whoever has to do that. We also include now for anyone who requests an electronic or audio copy of our meetings. All of our live streaming is on our website. You can have access to any of them. That was one thing that I was asked to look into. One more policy. Policy KBA as an E is public access to records. It's very clear how the public can get access to those minutes and records. Really all we need to do is come in and we can get them filmed rather quickly. What I was asked is to look at policies dealing with broadcasting or live streaming. Just for your information, we don't have one now. It's, of course, by that first statute, it's allowed as long as the public can hear, even participate, maybe not directly, but they have the ability to access through our email. But the big question that we've talked about is live streaming. Is it a liability? Because we've had troubles with technology. If we say we're going to do it and it doesn't happen, or somehow are we violating policy? Well, right now there is no policy. The idea that it's made available is something that we wanted to do, to be transparent, and it's something we would like to continue. I did find on the internet the trustee talk paper, and I provided that for you. Basically, it's a pros and cons of live streaming your board sessions. And I'm going to read a little bit of this to you guys. Broadcasting board meetings has advantages and drawbacks in the absence of state laws that require broadcasting. The board should carefully consider the pros and cons of broadcasting meetings before making the voluntary commitment, which we have. So broadcasting 101, the pros of broadcasting, increase transparency and make the business of the board more accessible to those who are unable to attend meetings. This is the biggest audience we've had in 12 months, so it's good to see you all, guys. It can be a way to increase engagement. If you remember doing our hearings, we actually allow a link to the email so we can have people comment. There is a delay, but Typically, we don't get a lot of people that comment. We don't do that for every live session, only for those hearings. So the big thing is it just provides access to those who typically may not have access. That's one of the big advantages. Let's see, cons of consideration. Board shall remember that there is a certain level of trust, even dignity, inherent within the traditional board meeting. Kind of like that. Broadcasting meetings can potentially alter this general atmosphere and cause changes in behavior. A board meeting is a business meeting of the board meant to carry out the governing body's fiduciary and stewardship responsibilities. There is sanctity to the proceedings, and trustees should strive to preserve this spirit of respect. Informative debate, and trust during meetings which are broadcast. The risk of damaging this atmosphere is enough to dissuade many boards and presidents of colleges not to broadcast. The changing behavior exhibited by some meeting participants can be exacerbated by broadcasting. We've never experienced that here, but if you've watched any YouTube, there's a lot of it in other places in terms of board meetings, people posture. So some people are inclined to behave differently in front of cameras. They're talking about grandstanding. Broadcasting meetings can also have the opposite effect on participation, which maybe that's what we've seen. There's typically only the administrators here and the newspaper. Maybe they're streaming it live at home, which I guess I don't blame them. But if our goal is to increase attendance at board meetings, broadcasting may not be the answer. And then one of the cons is technology does not always work. With that,
So Mr. Thomas, can I kind of give a background why I asked you to
Yes.
look into all this, just to kind of sum it up? So we had a community member ask us directly if we were following our own policies regarding our minutes. And were we taking accurate enough minutes, and we were questioned about the integrity of our minutes. And we were also asked about, okay, well, if you're choosing to live stream, and if you have technical difficulties that are prohibiting it to be out there to the public, should there be a policy put in place by the board to adhere to making sure that every single thing is streamed? So they were asking us to ask the board in general, if we would like to increase our policies to include the recording and live streaming to increase our transparency, and if we felt that that was a need, that we needed to do that. And the question is, do we need to do it or do we not? That we have a lot of policies in place. It's not, we're following our policies, we're actually going over and beyond our policies, like a million times.
Well, and I think us providing it being broadcast to the community is a courtesy that we're providing. We don't have to do that.
And then is there a way when you're live streaming it, is there a way that, the IT guys can figure out how many people are actually on, at home,
It'll tell you.
watching? Is there a way to say, though, there's only 2 people, or maybe there's 30?
Jaron?
Pay attention here.
come on up.
And the reason why I asked the question, I think, is obvious. I mean, if you have one person listening to the board meeting tonight as an example, then, what is the value in it?
So we use YouTube, and YouTube has analytics as to kind of who's on there. I don't watch that during the board meeting to see. I do know on occasion, I've had people, hey, text me, hey, can't hear the volume. Then I'll get another text, can't hear the volume. So I've had upwards of 5 to 10 people text me on different things. And so I would say on average, we'll have anywhere from 5 to 10 individuals watching, depending on what's being talked about during a particular board meeting.
Madam Chair, if I may, I think the power is in its archive. You don't have to watch, if you have a track meet on every Tuesday, you're not going to be able to come to a board meeting, but you can watch it on Wednesday. So I do think that's the power of it. It's archived forever. And you can scroll through it at your ease. If you want to just see Mr. Mayor's presentation, you can just watch that. And so that's, I think, the true benefit of the additional records.
And if I may kind of go back in time, well, when we started it, it was during a time where community members were broadcasting and sharing and making comments afterwards, and this allowed us to give the full truth of what was going on. Any of us can take a segment of a video or a conversation and then make a conversation based on that, which wasn't truly giving a full perspective of what was being discussed. And that was one of the big reasons that as a board, when we talked about this, was it was going to be a courtesy. It was going to provide an opportunity for all to be able to hear truly what the discussions were going on between the board and the community or different things. And so I think it has been. Have we had some difficulties at times? Yeah, it is technology. But I think if you go back, you will see, since we started this, there's probably, I can think of maybe 2 times where we've had some technical issues. Unfortunately, happened to be the one night that a particular community member has brought this forward. But I try very, very hard to begin getting things going as early as 30 minutes prior. And you've probably at times, I know Sherry's at times seen me running back and forth where I've had all the way up till 5 minutes before and sometimes even a couple minutes after trying to get things, because I want to be able to provide this opportunity for our community, for those who are taking part in it. I know the question has come, and if I may share my 2 cents, I would discourage us as a board to create a policy around it, because I think there are some things that then we have to be held to. I really like the fact that we will do whatever we can to try to provide this, but if it doesn't work, I'd rather come up to Superintendent Thomas and say, hey, you know what? I've tried everything, and looking at the agenda, there doesn't seem to be anything that I think is going to be super hot topic. Let's not stream that tonight, and I will figure it out tomorrow when I don't have everybody else in this room.
Well, and like Cassie said, we're following our policies regarding archiving things in the minutes. Like I said, the broadcasting is a complete courtesy that we are not required to do. So I don't think we should have a policy regarding it either.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I did give you 2 draft policies, and I see no advantage to either one. Probably the only advantage there is it does make the statement again in policy that our official minutes have to be approved by the board, and that's what goes into the book, according to our policy. And you can erase these audio recordings after use.
Yes.
They're also really outdated. You're talking about videotaping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I guess I like what we do,
Yeah.
and I think we're as transparent as we can be, and I like the service it provides, and I do like watching them occasionally just to see what's
Oh,
going on.
yeah, and I do too. And one thing that I know, I think this topic really, we need to address kind of the do we need a policy for the recording? And we also need to talk about the integrity of our minutes. So, one thing that is, you read statute, Mr. Thomas, and that was it. There's no other requirements to the minutes. Our minutes could actually be very, very, very simple, to the point that they only document, like, who made the motion, and if it was approved or not, and then just say there was public comment, and that's it. And so the work that our district does, and Sherry does specifically, to record as much of our meetings verbatim is fantastic. I just want to and you guys can look at this, but I pulled up some board minutes from around the communities in the state, and they're night and day. I have one in Laramie that they're very, very simple. And then one in Cheyenne that they're very, very detailed. And they're still following the law. They're still doing what they need to do. I did kind of do, just so you guys know, I did some information research. So I did some digging into 7 different districts around us. Laramie 1, Albany 1, Campbell 1, Carbon 1, Southwest, Sweetwater 1, Sweetwater 2, and Lincoln 2. Those districts, except for one, video stream. So we're not, doing it, by ourselves anymore. And then they're very back and forth of how detailed their minutes are. So, and they are doing it just fine. And their minute policy, several of them are just like ours. Some of them are even briefer than ours. It literally is just a sentence. And only one of those 7 that I found, which I didn't go through all of them, actually do have the video and audio recording of minutes. And that is Lincoln 2. And so there's only one that I looked that even is addressing a policy like that. So, just so you know kind of where we compare to others. You guys have any
No, I think
concerns about that?
No, I don't think there's any need for a policy on the streaming.
Okay.
If they're concerned about whether it's going to spin the little wheel or not while they're streaming, then maybe live would be the best.
Yeah, come to the meeting.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, we'll be done with that one. Okay, down to our EHS track and field update and air structure update.
You should have just stayed up.
That's what I was just thinking. Welcome back,
Yes,
Jerry.
I need to go get a
laptop.
I was instructed by Linda that I needed to be quick, so. You see the documents that have been shared, just kind of quickly from the last month, really the last couple of weeks. That last week of school, we poured well over 1,000 yards of concrete. If you haven't had a chance to go up there, it is phenomenal. The entire track is being completed, the high jump area is completed, and the long and triple jump has been completed with concrete. All of our breaks have come in, just got our 7-day breaks. The other day, those came in right where they needed to be. If you'd like to see those, Mr. Peterson, I'd be happy to share those. The break that we're really looking for is the 28-day break, and that's what really determines it. If our 28-day break comes in where it needs to be, then they can put the surface on, and we're good to go. And based on our 7-day breaks, we will probably meet or exceed those. They've laid 90% of the rock layer, so when you go out there, you're going to see a bunch of rock. A lot of rock was hauled in. Underneath that rock is fabric, and then flat drains, which then lead into the French drains, which go on the outside. So 90% of that work has been completed. The last thing that they will do is bring almost some pea-sized gravel that will go on top. That'll be watered and rolled, watered and rolled, watered and rolled about 3 or 4 times, and then the surface, the turf itself, will actually be pulled over to the top of that, which then is infilled with sand and the rubber. And so that's coming along. That turf itself should be here on the 15th, delivered on our property. And talking on Monday when we had our meeting, it looks like the field turf guys doing the track might start doing the overlay of the track as soon as our 28 days, which would actually bringing the field on a little bit later. So we'll know for sure probably next week as they're looking at that. So all in all, things are going really, really well. I just got my last 3 bids for the concrete work, which will be the cement sidewalk going up, the sidewalk fix repair behind the concession stand, and then our 30 by 30 pad for our new building, which will be kind of some storage area for us. And so Daryl Norris here locally actually was our lowest bidder on that, and so we'll have a meeting with him to be able to begin that. Sewer line replacement, storm drain, that is in process and working. Be meeting with him again tomorrow just to make sure that we can have that completed in the next 5 to 10 days. And then, as we look at it, and you guys see, I believe attached in there, basically, August 17th will be the final completed day for field turf. Hopefully, we'll have everything else done as well, but that'll be field turf's final day, and you'll see that coming along. Any questions on the field before I jump over to the air structures?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Peterson.
So, grade-wise, you know, we chose not to, or they chose not to remove the existing asphalt. Because of that, there are some grade changes that are going to go along the building, along the side where our visiting bleachers are at. There is some additional work that's going to be associated with that because they raised it. Who is incurring that cost?
Field turf.
Okay.
Right now.
So field turf is going to be the one that's going to, okay.
Yep.
That was the concern there, so thank you. And then my other one is, do we have a schedule from who we've hired to do our press box? What is the timing on that? Concern of getting that completed by September? What happened at EMS was not acceptable.
Tomorrow, I actually have a meeting with them. I also have a meeting with Trevor, who's doing our drains and sewer replacement, and then I have a meeting with Daryl. So all three of those contractors together to get it. We were moving forward with our press box, and there was some concerns, which are valid concerns, and that was some structural engineering, whether we needed to have a stamp plan on that due to the height of the existing press box where we have, knowing that we were exceeding that a little bit more. And so I've reached out to a structural engineer, and hopefully with the plans that we have kind of drawn together, based on the information we're providing, I should have something by Friday, which will allow us to move forward. So the reason we're not seeing movement right now on the press box is I've kind of held it because I thought, from a liability point, we probably want to make sure that we've got some sort of stamp that says, hey, this idea is a great idea, Jaron. Now let's have that engineered or stamped that way. So, but things have been ordered for it so that we can't, because I know right now the thing that worries me the most is our windows. And the soonest that DeRuse is telling us that we can get those windows is the middle of August. And windows is what held us up last time, and so did the metal on the outside. So, two things that I learned from last year that I said, hey, we need to get those ordered sooner. I verified that DeRuse actually did give a confirmation that it was ordered, so, and that was done over a month ago. So,
okay.
Supply and demand, as you well know, has been difficult on some things, so.
Based on the schedule of the construction of the turf, or the football field and the track and field, any slippage on the dates that you're worried about that's going to push it to late August? Historically, right now, that we've seen with the field turf?
My biggest worry was our cement. Yeah. Because as everybody knows, getting the powder, there's places down in the Wasatch Front that they've been told that they're not going to see cement for 28 to 30 days. And so initially, about a month ago, that was my biggest concern. And where we've got 90% of our cement laid and the portion that we need laid, I'm feeling really, really comfortable. Everything else is here on site or on its way. The pea gravel they can get, the synthetic, yeah, like I said, the turf, the surfacing, all of that, everybody has, and it doesn't have a delay to it. So right now, based on field turf and what they have, I'm confident that they're going to meet their deadline or exceed, where we might even have that as soon as the first week or second week of August, which is be wonderful.
Thank you.
So, great question, though.
We got one light standard up today?
So actually, all 4 lights are up. So if you go there, you will see the new lights on the power poles. They're not functioning, but they were able to get the crane, and they are up there, and so now they'll finish the rest of the work this week and the first part of next week to have the lights in. And so another thing that we hopefully will soon be able to mark off as completed, which is exciting.
So if you've been up there, if there's any relationship to the size of the lights, to the amount of light they produce, they're
Big, they really,
big.
yeah, yeah.
Should be kind of cool.
Yeah, in talking with those guys today that were putting it up, they were having problems with the laser to get it so that it lined up right on the field. Yeah, which I thought was, in fact, they were even looking for a little less sunlight, they could see the laser. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all laser oriented,
Yeah.
and just to kind of give you guys an idea, we will have 50-watt candlelight on that field, which is equivalent to what most of your collegiate fields are. So it's going to be nice. Our refs will be able to see.
That's right.
Beyond the hump, because they won't be there either. So it's really going to light that up, and I'm excited once they have those finalized to be able to turn those on and really see what that's going to do for that area. But I think it's really going to pop that area up really nicely, so it'd be great. Any other questions in regard to the field and the work there? Okay, Linda, I'm still trying to go fast here. Air structures. You'll see I've provided in your documentation the areas that we deem would probably be the best for the air structures. The one would be at Evanston Middle School, and that would be between the current track and the baseball fields. The other two will fit really nicely on the tennis courts, the old tennis court area, which is right behind our current sign, right there. And looking at everything, it'd be a perfect place for that. Also getting a design so that we would have ADA access coming off of the top. So if you were to come out the lunchroom there, be able to walk right where the sidewalk is that takes you to the football field, and then be able to create an ADA access ramp right up to the top of there, so that if we have events there, parents need, or students need to be in wheelchairs, be able to easily access that. We felt that putting the two behind there would be better than putting one there and one kind of in the front, being able to allow a lot of different things. And so if as a board you're okay with those, we will move forward in the work that we're doing with that.
So we're going to stay in 3 up versus 2?
We're going to start with 2 and then look at EMS. So what I would like to do is, I'll probably start in the month of July. I need to start working with the city on what permitting that we need. I've already reached out to Rocky Mountain Power, because there's a transformer that sits just right below there, what it would be to be able to get a meter to that point, because I'm going to need 3-phase power, and what that cost would be. There's also a gas meter right there. I talked to Dominion a couple weeks ago. We can come off of the 2-inch line that was dropped down for the sheds already, and so they feel that we could just tee right off of that, come right up there with what we would need with our natural gas. So really our next thing would be to probably go out to bid and kind of get an idea of what the cement cost would be for that, and then be able to present that to you as the board. Also, recognizing that once we had these up, we needed to kind of fill those. Bubba did a little bit of KSL searching about 3 weeks ago, had found an individual who was getting rid of some turf, and so I used about $10,000 in my general maintenance fund. We went down with the help of about 40 students 2 times, and physically cut that and picked it up and brought it back here to Evanston. And so it's roughly about 100 feet by 120 feet, which would easily fill one of the air structures and possibly half of another. And so that's really good. In the conversation I had with the guy, he had some sports court. He runs these different activities. So I said, hey, I'm interested. Went to his facility, showed us the sports court. It's a year old. Those are the pictures that you see in your documentation there. That sports court, he's got 2 sports courts that have that coloration that I said is a year old. He's got another one that's about 5 years old, and willing to give us some netting, some basketball standards, some volleyball standards, some bleachers, some trailers, all of that. And we're kind of negotiating a price right now somewhere between $60,000 and $75,000. To kind of give you an idea, if we were to get a sports court right now of that full size, we're probably looking at, Bubba, correct me if I'm wrong, probably $180,000 to $210,000 for one sports court that's been painted that way. So another opportunity for you, the board, to be thinking about, but we wouldn't have to look at picking any of this up or even purchasing till end of October, November. So we have some time, but just wanted to throw that out to you, so have some things to think about and could be really useful in these air structures with that. So.
Great.
Any questions on the air structures and kind of the progress of those?
Oh, a lunch. I didn't think they were going to fit on there, so.
And room to spare.
And room to spare, I see that, so. Yeah,
Dessert as well.
With dessert, so.
Question might be asked, what are we doing with the current discus and shot put area? We will move that up to the top of the practice field, which will work really, really well in what we're doing. And so it all will mesh and be really good. So I've had a lot of our coaches, a lot of our staff really excited about these air structures, and they're like, hey, are we going to have these as soon as winter? And I'm like, I don't know yet, but we'll see where we're at as we continue to move along. So really appreciate all your support. Please, if you have a chance, go up to the field, take a look at it. It is coming along. You guys can do your first 400 around there. You can walk it or run it now. So it's been awesome. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, down to our next item for discussion, which is our sabbatical leaves.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I provided policy, GCBD, which is our leave policy. What I'm suggesting and recommending is that we just basically cut out all our sabbatical leaves. There hasn't been a sabbatical leave in our district since prior to 2000. There was 3 probably prior to 2000. 2 of them never made their commitment to continue with the district. The 3rd did, had a long career in our district, so it paid off. The purpose of sabbatical leaves that time used to have a residency requirement in colleges for a master's degree or doctorate degree. They don't have that any longer. The idea of paying 2/3 salary or half salary for someone to take a year off, we don't have those kind of funds like we used to at that time when this was created. What we offer instead is a leave of absence, and that's what's been done for years and years and years. That's my recommendation, and you will approve this on first reading tonight if you would like. But it just doesn't make any sense to have it in there. We just don't do them, and we can't afford to do them either.
So I know that Mr. Phillips had suggested another just little red line in that when it comes down to the definition of immediate family. Did you get that?
I did not.
Yeah.
That wasn't me.
Well, that was you?
That was part of his edit.
Yeah, you just forwarded it.
I just changed
Oh.
a few
It was in
things.
there.
Oh, was it?
I just made a
That
few
is this
corrections.
whole thing.
Oh, is it?
Stuff.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I thought he had already put it in.
Oh, right here.
It
This is the
defined
red
immediate
line.
family member.
Yeah, this was the only
Not sure what
suggestion,
that-
though, it was already in there.
He emailed it
Just forwarded it to us.
Oh,
It's like a fourth thing.
okay.
It's first reading, we can,
Okay, that's fine.
We can
I just
talk
want to make
about
sure
it.
that I was getting everything in there that we needed. Okay, never mind then.
That's all the discussion I have, Madam Chair.
Okay, great. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay, down to Coalition of Wyoming Schools.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I think I've talked about this before. There is a coalition of Wyoming school districts that have got together, and they're joining forces to discuss the lack of ECAs of the funding model, so external cost adjustments. potentially preparing for a suit. Again, the issue is there's an ECA, internal cost adjustment, built into the model. Our legislature had chosen over the last 10 years to pick and choose how those have been funded, either reducing them or eliminating them completely. For example, this year, the ECA for cost of living for our staff was removed, and I can't think of a time in the last 40 years where we didn't need a cost of living adjustment with inflation. And it's a significant amount. This group considers that over the last 10 years, they've shorted education in Wyoming close to $200 million. Our portion of that would be based on our ADM, but it would have allowed us those years where we had to reduce through attrition and cut significantly to continue with the salary schedules we see. What they've created is obviously we've lost our competitive advantage with our region states. Even in the last Joint Education Committee I attended last week, it is public knowledge that Utah is now ahead of us in terms of an advantage with teacher and administrative salaries. And it's just getting worse. The reason for that is because we haven't had a stable cost of living adjustment for the last 10 years. So my recommendation is that we look at joining this coalition. If you recall the history of Evanston and Uintah County School District, in the late 90s, 95 through 98, we joined other large districts and sued the state because of the inequities of the funding model. At that time, Evanston, Uintah County School District had the lowest per student funding of any district in the state. They were successful. Those are the Campbell lawsuits. There's been 4 of them since then, which drastically modified funding to education in Wyoming. They took effect in early 2006, and if you recall, 2006 to 2007 were the largest increase that our staffs received as they adjusted those funding models. The irony for us is we are still either the bottom or second to the bottom funded school in the state. There's some significant inequities, I believe, as you look from one district to the next. Even the idea of, Mr. Mayor gave an example of a mill for one district, maybe $4,000. For us, it's $65,000, and for Jackson, it's over $1 million. The inequity of that is staggering. And it has affected us. We have had to cut and scrimp, and if you know that 87% of our budget goes to our staff, it's affected them. We can no longer compete with employees along the Wasatch Front. That was our mainstay. The number of applications we get for jobs have dropped off the table. I remember in 2009, we had over 300 applications for our elementary positions, which allowed us to, I think, recruit and retain some of the best employees, those that we have now that are our best employees. Now, we had 2 principal positions open, and we got less than, I think, 10 applications each. That's just unbelievable. Elementary position, I think we're over 9 or 10 applications per position. Special ed, much less than that. To recruit the best, and we all know the biggest impact to education is that quality classroom teacher. And for us to recruit the best and keep the best, we need to be competitive, at least along the Wasatch Front, at least in Uintah 4 and Uintah 6, which we're not. And so, if you notice the districts that are members of this coalition, Albany 1, Campbell 1, Carbon 1, Converse 2, Fremont 24, Johnson 1, Hot Springs 1, Laramie 1, Lincoln 1, Sheridan 1, Sheridan 3, Sublette 1, Sweetwater 1 and 2, Teton 1, Weston 7. What this would allow us is to get into discussion with these coalition districts and the law firm that supports them is Hickey and Evans out of Cheyenne, and begin the discussion. Originally, when this coalition started, why we didn't participate was because it was just the ECA. My concern is greater than that. It is the funding formula and how it affects us, being the lowest funded in the state. Makes no sense. But we're the prototypical school district in Wyoming, therefore we're the lowest funded in the state. Now they're considering other issues with the funding model, and I think it's time to get involved. The commitment is between $8,000 and $10,000 a year. If they sue, it will be more than that. Yeah. But at that time, we would have the opportunity to either get involved or not get involved. I can recall, and this is how long I've been around, in the late 80s, the board discussion was around the amount of money that was going to fund that lawsuit. the Campbell lawsuits. It was significant, but I can tell you it was well worth it. What that's done for education in Wyoming, and we should be proud that we were part of those lawsuits because there were inequities and they did straighten them out. The number one thing that I think is important is Wyoming Constitution is very clear that educational funding is a priority and should be the first considered. Right now, our legislators believe that that's not the case, but that's what Campbell 1 ruled, is no, you have to fund school districts equitably. And the idea of what Teton County can produce per mill as compared to Evanston, Wyoming, there's an inequity there and the state has to take care of it. I'll also say that education in Wyoming has the potential, and we're funded very well, but they're not following the law. And I believe that our students deserve the best teachers and staff in the nation, not just the 18th in the state of Wyoming. So the legislatures, I can't imagine they don't want the best education for Wyoming students. They need to pay for that. And even if they adjusted the ECA, it would allow us to continue to move forward. So we don't have to make a decision tonight. We can actually have someone from Alex Ayers from Campbell 1's willing to come talk to us about why they think we should be involved. Hickey and Evans would come and tell you about the reasons why we should get involved. But I think it's a worthwhile commitment, not just to stand around and complain about the funding model, but do something proactively about it. Again, I just spent 2 days with the Joint Education Committee. It's going to take legal action to get some of our legislature off center. They just don't understand that education should be a priority of the state by Constitution. So,
Has there been any whispers to the state legislature that this might be forthcoming?
constantly.
Oh, yeah.
Since they've been involved in this coalition, it's out there. And just like, I think, the 4 districts that originally joined the Campbell lawsuits, there was some pushback by the legislatures. They didn't like what was happening and the amount of money involved, but at that time we were flushed in our state with money. There's some pushback to the school districts and that are involved in this coalition, but it can't be any worse than what we're seeing by not having an ECA in a year like this year. So I think it's something we can seriously consider.
Can we get them here in July?
I will do my best to get them here in July.
I think it's definitely worth looking into.
We may be a Zoom, but we'll get them here.
That's all right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great.
So,
Let's
yeah,
do it.
move forward
Yep.
with that. I think that's great.
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item on our discussion is EHS homecoming.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'd like to invite Principal Lester and Athletic Director O'Neill to come up and answer your questions. I did provide you some information in your packets, kind of a background of why that decision was made to change it 2 years ago. It just didn't start 2 years ago, and this is not Mr. O'Neill's thing. It was a decision of the high school to change. There's reasons behind it. I think more than anything else, you guys can slide your chairs up. More than anything else is these gentlemen are willing to listen, make decisions that are appropriate. I did put in there that in terms of homecoming is a high school decision, and that's what the board has always allowed. It's important that you receive input from the community representatives, who you guys are, but it is a decision at the high school because of all the facts and factors involved. That's where you want to leave that decision. And with that, please, you guys want to start, or do you want to ask questions?
Well, first, I want to say I'm the one who proposed putting this on the agenda. I know, and you guys may not remember, I was in opposition to changing this. First of all, because you have a lot of adult community members who have always been in full support of the homecoming activities. I was not able to attend the parade or the homecoming game last year due to the times that they were provided because I can't take off that much work. And I know that there's a lot of community members that feel that way. I think you'd have a lot more support if you had moved it back to when the game was at 7, the dance was on Saturday. Anyway, so I'm the one who, I was approached by a parent, and I've had a lot of community members say that that's what they would like us to do, is change it back to 7, so.
And I know last year I talked to you, Mr. Lester, because Wade was a senior on the football team and wanted it moved, and he was getting brave and was gonna come to the board and ask about it. And I called you first and, talked to you, and you said, everything's already set, we've already made arrangements with the team, so I completely understood, and I kind of pushed them down, and I did encourage the seniors last year. I said, if they really want to change it, talk to the juniors and tell them to approach it early next year with the principal and the board, so granted, that was a year ago, but.
So maybe if you guys can just help us understand everything that went behind making that decision, so that everybody is well educated about it, because I don't know if everybody knows the reasons why.
Okay, I'll start, because I sent you guys an email response this morning about, it's been probably 6, 7, 8 years ago. We had a group of parents that were concerned about the Saturday dance and how that affected their kids in terms of traveling to Salt Lake City or Wasatch Front in general for day dates. And it really isn't our business whether or not kids go on day dates to the Wasatch Front or whatever they're doing. It's really none of our business. Except for the fact that we do host a school dance on a Saturday night, which precipitated this whole function, this day date thing. The group of parents came and said, hey, can you help us out with it? Why do we not have the homecoming dance on Friday night? That's tradition, that's where we've had it. And so I think Mr. Lester wound up having a parent group that he met with to try to come up with a solution, which is not an easy solution. When you look at it, when it first came out, talked about having the football game on Friday night at 7, and then the dance right afterwards. Well, the student council didn't want that. The dance was going to start at 8:30, 9:30, depending on how the game went. That's not long enough time for a homecoming dance and that type of thing. So they came up with a compromise. Mr. Lester came to me and said, hey, would you look at the possibility of playing an afternoon game? We were able to work that out with other schools. In the past 2 years, we've been able to do that. This year, we have Star Valley at home, homecoming game. They're okay with coming in the afternoon and playing as well. Mountain View and Lyman, who is right here, our neighbors, they play afternoon games. That's pretty common in some of the smaller schools. I know when I went to high school here, we played 1:30 games. That's what we did, and it was kind of fun to have that atmosphere. So I didn't, I think some of the things that came out was I made this decision. Well, I didn't make any decision. I'll do whatever I'm asked to do. The game times make no difference to me as long as we can get officials. We don't care. And we don't care if it's Saturday or Thursday. It does not matter. We work with our schools. We have a good relationship with the schools that we play. And if we ask for a game time change, they'll definitely give us those game time changes. So that's what's occurred. It's been about a 7-year process. And then once the decision is made, it takes 2 years because we schedule a year out. And I don't know that many people know how we schedule our games for all of our activities. We meet in November the year before to make those decisions. And so when we were asked in our department to try to schedule those games, that's a year out. It's not tomorrow, it's not yesterday, it's 1 full year before we actually get into our schedule. One of the things that was asked of me also was to get as many home games for our other folks as well. That's not something that's been commonplace in Evanston for a long period of time. In 4A schools, it is not common. We try the best we can to make those things work, but there's a lot of factors that hinder that as well, because I see that there's some volleyball parents back there, and this year, for example, our volleyball girls will be in Casper for a tournament. We don't decide for Casper when they have their tournament. they could care less when we have our homecoming. Our coach wanted to go to Casper. It took us 15 years to get in the tournament. She didn't want to get out. I don't blame her. I'd want to stay in that tournament as well if I were coaching volleyball. But we try the best we can to get everybody at home if we can. This year we have swimming at home. Swimming for years, spent homecoming in foreign places, either Cheyenne or Gillette or wherever. We also have volleyball home on Thursday night, which allows them to participate at home, a home game before they leave to go to Casper on Thursday night. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. It's hard to get everybody here. 2 years ago, as the AD, and I think Coach Rigby will remember this, but our parents didn't want our volleyball girls to play on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, because those are 3 homecoming days. Well, there's no other days for us to schedule, so then our volleyball players don't have a home game. They're not participating other than with the school dance and football. 2 years ago, we also had state golf during homecoming, and we had a golfer that decided he didn't want to go to state golf, he'd rather go to the homecoming dance. Again, that's his choice to do that, but to get everybody at home for every event, nearly impossible because we don't control other people's schedules. We do the best we can. Sometimes it's our choice, and sometimes it's the choice of those schools. We have a home and away situation with all of our conference opponents, and we try to make those things work as well. So that's kind of homecoming in a nutshell, why the decisions were made as far as I know. Again, we don't care as far as the activities department. If you decide tonight that we're going to play at 7 o'clock on Friday night, there's 2 things that has to happen. One is we have to find officials, and that's not easy. Mr. Thomas is part of an officiating crew. He knows. We've had to move soccer games this year because we don't have officials. So we'll go through the process. That's number 1. Number 2 is calling Star Valley and asking them if they're okay with playing a 7 o'clock game, and I don't believe that would be an issue being at Star Valley. In I think the past couple of years, we've had Cody or Powell here, and that's a little different situation. They're traveling 7-8 hours, and they don't want to play a 7 o'clock game. They like to play an earlier game so they can get home. They actually travel to the game and then back home after the game, so they want to play a little earlier. So that's what I know as far as this is concerned. It's just strange that we went through this 7 years ago, and it was the parents that wanted it changed to Friday, and now we're back doing what we did before, if that's the direction you go.
Well, and I understand parents' complaints about the day date. I, for one, think it's stupid. I hate the fact that we've got kids on the freeways traveling down to Utah, but I think that that's the parents. If you don't like it, control your kids, stay in town. That should not be the district's responsibility to ensure that kids aren't traveling to Utah. That's the parents.
So I have a question. So is this discussion to change what's in place right now?
Yes.
Absolutely not. If this discussion is about changing something, then that's 2023, not 2022. It's in place now. And officials, I'm fairly passionate about this. The officials are in place, our team is coming, we have a grand opening or a ribbon cutting for our new facility. I'll tell you this, Hall of Fame's not changing. We're not changing the date, we're not changing the time. So if this is what you want, 2023, not 2022. It's in place now, you're too late.
I think you could do a Hall of Fame luncheon.
Then I'm going to be harsh because I don't,
we should care about what our senior boys want this year, really. I mean, I think we gotta.
Okay.
Last year we said no, and I talked to Merle myself and said, I totally understand, Merle, it's a month before, there's not time to change. I talked down all these kids last year and said, boys, it sucks, I'm sorry you don't, but hey, let's let the boys next year look at it. How are we gonna say now it's another year? The Hall of Famers can wait. Okay, they've waited since '87 to be put in, or whatever year it was. If it's an hour late, or you do it during them and they miss the homecoming game.
Well, but I
think we
also
care about our
think you
kids
could
this
do,
year.
instead of the Hall of Fame dinner, you could do a Hall of Fame luncheon. It could all be on the same day.
It's not changing. That's not going to change. And the other thing that I will bring up is if we, as a board, say, we're going to change and let this happen, and something did happen to a student, then we as a
Go
board...
talk to the Thornock family.
Yeah.
Go talk to the Anderson family. 3 girls. You're back there shaking your head.
Yeah.
That was most painful thing I have ever gone through. It was 4 kids in a vehicle without supervision. 3 of them died. And I agree, it's up to the parents. That's your decision. That is your decision. But I'm telling you that there's some things, you're back there shaking your head, and I lived through it. And it was, I know.
So one thing that, can I just talk for a
Yes, I was
second?
going to ask you to please.
Yeah, so the other part that's missing in this is, so when you're a principal, people don't understand this. It's the craziest thing because everybody wants to talk to you about things they want to change. So I literally have heard hundreds of families over the years that have wanted to get rid of the day date thing. So I've understood that, right? I never liked it either, and my kids are the ones that always took my Suburban with 8 kids down to Utah, and I hated it just because I felt like it was always on my shoulder, and and kind of the peer pressure, it's like, come on, Dad, type of thing. But, so I understand that. I love the kids were having fun, but I hated that being on me. So I never did like that necessarily. I wouldn't have minded if it was just my son and, a date, but anyway, that's just that's my personal note. The other part that over the years that we've been asked over and over and over to do is kind of return some of the old traditions that we used to have. So from the last year, you saw the E got whitewashed for the first time in, how many years? 15 years. So the E got whitewashed, so we had a lot of those old activities that kind of brought back, some of that stuff. The one thing that I would just want to mention, last year we had homecoming dance on Friday after the game, and it was the most heavily attended dance we had all year. And there were well over 100 more kids there than any other dance we had that year. So I'm not sure, because normally I would look at, okay, not very many came, so we kind of need to look at it. But it was the most heavily attended dance of any of the dances we had. So that told me. So what I'm wondering this year, because here's the deal, I appreciate these guys. There's some things that I didn't like with the change. I really missed Porter's fireworks after the game because it was at a night game. So there's some of those things that I just really missed. What I'm wondering is if we actually could push the start time back to 5:36, and there would still be some lights at the end, and you could do the fireworks and then do the dance. Because here's what I don't want to have happen. I don't want to make a decision that we're going to flip back to exactly how we used to be, and then have all those parents pissed at me, because that's who they come to. Why did you do that? And, and a lot of people don't understand when you hear that over 10 to 15 years, and you have hundreds of parents ask you that, it kind of wears on you. So what I don't want to do is I don't want to just flip it right back and say, okay, now in 2 years they're going to be here and we'll be flopping back. So how can we adjust the schedule within it to make it work for both? I think that's what we have to look for. And so Student Council actually this year is even interested in proposing that homecoming be a non-formal dance and that we actually do a senior ball that is formal.
At another time.
at another time. It'd be later in the year, I think, probably in January, February. And so, you know, we haven't proposed that to any of the kids. They actually just proposed that to me the other day. And I thought that was an interesting idea. So I don't know, how do you guys feel about that? Having homecoming be non-formal?
Any of you parents?
Or kids?
He's posing the question
We got
to you
some
guys.
kids. Come on. What do you guys think?
I'm on student council, and so I do know a little bit about that, and they were saying, so just this last year, we had an end of school year dance, and it was more of like a chalk dance, so you wear white clothes, and then you throw chalk on the students, and that's what they were saying they wanted it to be. But, so I don't know how parents feel about that.
For homecoming, they wanted it to be like that?
Yeah.
So the boys could still be sweaty and not have to go dress in tuxes?
The girls wouldn't have to get dressed up.
You guys tried to propose that idea because you were told you can't change the time? Yes, yeah, that was. So initially you would prefer the time change, but you were trying to accommodate Mr. Lester's wishes of maintaining the time at 3. I believe so, yeah. I wasn't a part of student council all of last year, so I didn't know all of that stuff that was happening, but from what I heard from this year as the junior class president, that's what it seemed like.
What about like royalty? I mean, that's a big part of homecoming.
It is.
So going in your grubs and getting all dirty.
But isn't that before homecoming, the game?
It's part of the game, but it's all, but they get pictures at the dance.
Dress up. Or if a football player is nominated and gets homecoming king, he doesn't get to participate in the parade. He has to be on the football field.
They've never been able to do that.
Never been able to participate, so.
Yeah.
And just, I don't play football, I cheer for football, and I love my football boys. And every single one of them, they're like, Francom, do you know what it's like to play underneath the lights? I'm like, no, I've never been there. That's what these boys live for. And these awesome collegiate lights that we just paid how much money for?
$176,000.
Okay, for 2 games, like give the boys.
What about 6 o'clock? What do you guys think about that? Like kind of in the middle a little
It's better
bit?
than 3. So what time would that put the parade? Because that's another thing, like businesses want to participate.
Right,
in the
and they
parade, but
can't.
They can't because they're not.
Had put the parade at 4, and that's where it's been.
One thing I wanted to say, I'm from Toronto Valley, and for the last 12 years, we have hosted the tailgate party for homecoming, and it was at 6. And what was nice about that is we donate all of our time, all of the supplies, and we cook hamburgers and hot dogs. And all of that money that we raise goes back to the Booster Club. We have not been able to participate for the last 2 years because of the time frame. I still have to run my business down there. We close at 6. I can only send half of my employees to the parade and the other half to go to the tailgate. Now we can't participate in any of it because of the time frame. And I mean, I donate between $1,000 and $2,000 back to the boosters in one night. And I know that might not seem like a lot, but I'm giving back to the community, and it's all volunteer time. We're not asking for anything. They even would give us little tickets that we would pay for the football players, or we give football players meals while they were there. And it was all donated. So that's something you're losing out if we do not change the time frame.
So this sounds that, Mr. Lester, I mean, historically, this is a school decision that's made. This is not a board decision. And we trust that you guys make the best decisions for our community. And it sounds like you have an audience and you have open ears.
Yeah.
And it sounds like this conversation can definitely be continued. And you guys could make arrangements if you want to look at scheduling. And we don't necessarily have to be hearing all of these details and hashing it out in the middle of a board meeting. This is something that could be done on the outside.
My experience with it, it's just the students. The students are, and I work up at the high school, I'm a teacher there, and a lot of kids have come to me over the years, and Cole and Morrow actually met with me, and Cole Robinette, and Carter Randall.
I have a letter from the football players. They can't be here tonight.
And I didn't know how to go about it, and that's why I think they've taken this route, because they really want their voice to be heard. And quite often at the high school, kids, I send them to Mr. Lester all the time to, hey, go talk to Mr. Lester about it. And they come back and report to me that no, nothing can be done. And I don't think that is the correct order. I think there's got to be a way to be able to communicate and present and to be heard. And I think that's why we are here.
Do you mind if we read the letter from the boys? Because they really wanted to be here.
Done here.
They're in Colorado.
You know what, we have, this is discussion, and typically, when we, let's do it in
Can we
public
do
comments.
public
Let's do
comments?
public comments,
Okay, we can do that.
because we're kind of getting out of what we should be, which I want to listen, but let's wait
Thank you.
for that, okay?
Madam Chair, if I may just add one thing. 2 years ago, when they came to me and suggested that the parade be at 1, I was adamantly opposed because of letting kids out of school for half a day. After we did it 2 years ago, I was a supporter. To see the excitement on those kids, K through 12, and their ability to participate that maybe they would not if it was at 4, changed me. The idea of last homecoming game, it was packed at 3 o'clock. There was capacity. This year, we have potential of bleachers. They won't be here for homecoming, but the concrete is there. We knew we probably won't get them until October, November. Something we'll be proud of again in the future, but timing just didn't allow us to purchase that. I do kind of like the idea of a compromise and work this out somehow. I also feel homecoming is for our students, most definitely, but it's also for our alumni. And the pride that we have in the work that Mr. Wheeler has done with our Hall of Fame. As I understand it, that was the only date available. They signed that up last year. They cannot change it. Is it possible that they have a luncheon? Does that take away from the importance of that issue? We're recognizing individuals that did participate in homecoming activities and did have a part in the creation of the traditions that we try to support. When I was high school principal, it was extremely disappointing that we lost some of those traditions. You're probably aware that we were told we could no longer have a bonfire because of the pipe bombs that were placed in there. We could no longer have the honk out because someone drove on the back of another vehicle. We couldn't paint the E because of the manure that was placed on there by the seniors before the freshmen went and painted it. Those are realities. So we tried to create new traditions, just not the same. I was pretty touched that Principal Lester has tried to go back to bring back their traditions. What I don't want to happen is this is going to be the ribbon cutting of this stadium that we're all going to be proud of. I don't want one negative thing to affect that. So if we can compromise and work this out, because I believe Mr. Lester, or I think with Mr. O'Neill, who said that you're going to get the other parents next month that like the afternoon game because they work swing shift. I don't know if we can make everyone happy, but we can darn well try. Who should have the biggest impact? Is it our football players? It's disappointing that we cannot schedule, and it's not Mr. O'Neill's fault, it's the scheduling idea. We have 5 sports, right, that we have to try to schedule. We've worked forever to get this volleyball game in Casper, that tournament, because that's their competition and they want to do it. We're not ever going to find a date where someone is not away. That's just the reality of homecoming. But we can do our best, and I believe Mr. O'Neill has tried to do our best. I do like the Friday game. I'm a parent that had 4 kids, that after the first one, my kids no longer went on the date dates. So I was a parent who said no. My first one, I tell you, it was horrible. And as a parent, I should never let it happen. So if we can do anything that prevents that possibility, I think we're smart. Can we make accommodations? Can we kind of compromise? I believe we can. Is it 6 o'clock? Is it 5 o'clock game? Who knows? But I think we can work it out where you can still have the banquet. We can still have the dance. We can still have a great game. We can still have a ribbon cutting. We can still have a parade. Again, I think compromise in this case is the way to go, because we're not going to make everyone happy, and decisions have to be made. Typically, officials, you need to know if they're playing an afternoon game, they have a night game too.
Yeah.
And so they're double scheduled. And that will be a challenge, but I think that can work out. So anyway, that's kind of my recommendation, is that Principal Lester and Mr. O'Neill and whoever else wants to get involved begin at looking at how we can compromise and work this out.
Can I just say one thing that has nothing to do with being the athletic director? I grew up here. I played afternoon games. It was a lot of fun. I coached in night games. A lot of fun. In both situations, whatever the game time is, it's going to be great. It's going to be a great experience. It doesn't matter if it's 9 o'clock in the morning, which you have to play in the state tournament in basketball or volleyball, or if it's 9 o'clock at night, it's going to be great. That's what it is. I will also say to you guys that over the last 4 or 5 years, and I really can attribute this to the Hall of Fame, we have the biggest parade crowd of anybody in this state. It's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and the 1:30 parade time surely hasn't hampered the number of people that attend our parade. Matter of fact, it's been enhanced by the kindergartners and first and second, third graders with their teachers bringing them to the parade. So it's more visible than it's ever been. For me, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of where we are with all of it. I don't care what time the game is. It does not matter. If we can get officials, it's not an issue. But I think we sometimes get so wrapped up in when things are. You know, someone said to me today, and it might have been Mr. Wheeler, said, it's, anytime, any place, anybody, we're going to play, and we're going to do our very best. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. And it's the same thing with our parade. Anytime, any place, and it's going to be great. We're going to do our very best. And that's what I support. Whatever you guys want, I'm okay with. Whatever works best for the high school, I'm okay with. Whatever our school board wants, I'm okay with. And whatever our athletes want, I am okay with. But to make all of you happy, that's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. That's my experience.
Madam Chair, just to add to that, the idea that this separates or distracts from how important these activities are, I hope that doesn't occur. It seems that no one can disagree agreeably anymore, and sometimes you may have to. I look at the traditions. In this community, football is a great tradition. So are all of our activities. Allowing all those students, K-8, K-12, to go to the parade and go to the game and see those seniors and juniors and sophomores play football may be one of the best things for our football program. We need to build it, not tear it down. And so I hope whatever works out here, whatever decision made, everyone can agree to agree. Okay, this is what we need to do. Get your way, great. If you don't,
that's the best statement I've ever heard. It's such an awesome thing for those young kids to come see what great kids we have and to see them perform. It's a great thing. It's a great thing, no matter what it is.
If I may, I've been in the community for 15 years now, and it's been 48 years since I graduated from high school, and down in Arizona. And as an alumnus, the programs for the alumnus have been, it's a school of almost 3,000 students. It's pretty poor. I don't get phone calls, we reach out. I mean, there just isn't anything for the alumnus. But the 15 years I've been here, I've got friends that went to this high school, and they're about my age, and they look forward to it every year. They look forward to it. I can see, I've got grandkids that are going to the school. I've got 2 that graduated from Evanston. I mean, it's a big deal here in Evanston, and everybody in this town who's from Evanston ought to be proud of that, and even the ones that are like me, that have not grown up here, but, from Arizona. I'm proud of what I see, and I'm sure everybody can compromise and come up with something that's good. But I didn't play football. I mean, I was think I was 5'2" and 112 pounds, you know, they used me as the football. You know, but I see the young men out there and the young ladies, and everybody's participating. It's just, it's an awesome experience, and I've experienced that in the time that I've been here, and everybody that's involved, to include parents, of course. It's an awesome thing. It is. I think it's great.
So, Mr. Lester, I think what I'm hearing everybody ask is, can we look at it? Can we have conversations?
We can have conversation. Here's the deal. Personally, I don't care. You know, but I can tell you they're the parents that don't want the day date. I think they need to be heard. The kids want to have a night game. I understand that. You know, so could a 5:30, 6 o'clock start that ends at 8:30? You could still do the fireworks. We could jump into the dance, go till 11:30 type of thing. I think that's all doable. And then everybody's kind of listened to and kind of heard. I don't know.
Is there a committee at the school?
No, we had a committee. I really don't feel like doing another one, but.
I'm just asking a question. I wasn't
Been there, done
insinuating
that, so.
anything.
But I think there's a need.
Yeah, I can see a need, but yeah.
Just a question, like what would it take, what would you need, Merle, from community, from students, from parents to get it changed? What would you like to see?
Honestly, Mrs. Frankham, I don't necessarily care. But what are we going to do about the parents who don't want the day date thing? They need to be heard.
I think that's what.
What's that?
Tell their kids no. I think that's what you would want. Maybe you would want a list of names that would sign on that would want.
So I don't know,
Because then
right?
it's not on you. It's that, hey, look at all these people.
Personally, my kids still go on day dates, even if it is Friday night.
Yeah.
They go Saturday, and they're gonna go anywhere. It's not,
So.
Why don't we do,
That's really the committee we really
well,
need.
hold on.
Yeah, we need to
Hey,
move on.
let's stop right here, okay?
So-
So what I would like to have done,
Can I take these guys out and visit with them? Sure. Would you
well,
do that?
well, the only thing, they're gonna, so what I'd like to do
Do it
is,
after public.
yeah, after
Oh,
public comment.
comments? Okay.
Because I want to hear them specifically, so we're not doing this back and forth.
Okay.
But I would like to see, and I know having a committee doesn't sound appetizing right now, but I think something needs to be done, be it an informal meeting where you put out invitations for parents to come and talk and just have another discussion, but come to a point where you can hear both sides have an opportunity to be heard, and then a decision can be made. This is not the venue for it. And I don't want to hash out, is it 6 or is it 5? We don't need to do this. It's not, I mean, we're here and we want to support everybody, but it doesn't need to be done here. So I would like something to be arranged where you can hear both sides and something can be come up with, and whatever that may be. And I think I would like to end the discussion part of this, unless the board has anything that's more specific. And then I will hear the public comments after that in just a minute. Anything else from you guys?
No.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and end the discussion part of this. I wanna thank everybody for their patience and all of their information. So we have one quick thing before we move on to public comments, okay? So we have the district logo trademark update.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I have had some discussions with Jeff Holman, who is handling the trademark for us. There are 3 issues we need to discuss, and some information that I think we need from the administration, potentially the board, and even the public as far as providing input on how we move forward with some of what we're doing with respect to the trademark. And let me explain. Trademarks, as I've found out, hang on, I'm on a... Okay. I've got a public to worry about. I've got an image. It's going to go on the Snapchat. Trademarks are really focused on uses and how a trademark is being used determines how much protection we, as the owner of that trademark, can provide. For example, we're not going to use our trademark, the Trident E, to sell sneakers across the United States, just as an example. That's not how we're going to use it. It's nowhere near how we're going to use it. And so if a company were to come in and take that and try and use it to sell sneakers, we may be able to protect our trademark, we may not, but my point is that we need to, as specifically as we can, identify how we are going to use our trademark so that we can protect it. And for the most part, that's going to be through education and our activities. It's on our equipment, it's on our shirts. Several of us are wearing the red Trident right now, and that's fairly easy. We can identify that. Jeff Holman can identify that. It becomes a little more challenging if there's some other kinds of uses, but that's what we need to identify. And so I need probably Mr. O'Neill's help, John Williams, Mr. Thomas, everyone, including the board, to identify any uses we may have for the Trident that may be more difficult to identify. I mean, it really has become a strong symbol for our whole community. When you think about Evanston, even the name Evanston, I generally think of the red Trident or the white Trident, and so we want to make sure that we protect that as much as possible, and if we are going to use it, that we trademark it appropriately. And so that's the first thing, that's the biggest homework that we have with respect to trademarking this, is making sure that we identify the various categories of use that we will have for the Trident as much as we possibly can. I tried to go through, I know how we use it for the most part. I tried to go through with that as best I could with Jeff, who is running a search on this as we speak, but I could use some help from all the involved parties. So that's the first thing, and I'm going to be fast. The second thing is that with respect to the trademark, we are going to have to put a little TM at the bottom with a circle on it, and that's going to be required. It doesn't mean that we're going to have to tear up our gyms and put the TM there, nothing like that. If it's not there already, it's no big deal. Even for the football field, if we don't have it there or planned on being there, it's not the end of the world. But moving forward on shirts, other apparel, equipment, that sort of thing, we will want to have the little TM there as much as we possibly can. And the reason for that is because if we don't use our trademark, we lose it. And if we don't enforce it, we lose it, which becomes even more challenging. One of the things we'll need to look at down the road is a simple licensing agreement that our local community partners will need to sign. We won't be requiring anything from them other than a signed agreement just saying that we're allowing you to use the trademark. That's going to become a little more complicated with Walmart. I'm not sure where that's going to go yet. We're working on that. We'll have more information on the Walmart situation later, but the other local partners that we have that use our trademark, we'll just need a simple licensing agreement with them, and so we'll need to make sure that we identify those partners, and we'll also need to require that they have the little TM below the Trident E so that we are protecting it and we are using it so that we don't lose it. Last thing, and then I'll answer any questions that we can have. One of the best ways to protect a trademark is to ensure that it becomes a federal trademark. It's really hard to protect it if it's not a federal trademark. The only way to make a trademark federal is if the trademark is being used in interstate commerce. And we're thinking, and by we, I mean Jeff Holman, the lawyer who's handling this, we are thinking that the best way to do that would be to use our connection to Utah to create this interstate commerce. We have some students I know who reside in Utah. We have teachers who also reside in Utah, and so that may be an easy way to do that. I also know that several of our activities take place in Utah. And when we go down there, obviously, we are wearing our brand, our trademark, our Trident E. And so we're thinking that that's the best way to do that, but that will really increase our ability to protect our trademark down the road from any outside attackers, which is really the purpose here. And so I'll work with administration on ensuring that we have those interstate connections to be able to do that. But the most important key here in what I'm talking about is just to ensure that we've identified all the uses so that we don't exclude anything, and so that all of these uses are protected down the road. And I'm hoping that I can get some help from the administration, as I mentioned, but also from the community to make sure that we identify all those uses and that we're protecting our trademark. Does anybody have any questions? I know we have a lot to do, so I'm hoping that we can get through this quickly, but any questions?
I don't. Does anybody else?
Yeah, I have one. I don't quite understand the best way to protect the trademark is with the federal and going across.
We can only make it a federally protected trademark if there's interstate commerce involved. If you're in Lander and you're trying to trademark your logo, I think it would be much more difficult because they have no ties to any other states. You have to have some kind of an interstate connection there in order to make it federal. It just doesn't work any other way. I mean, they could try, but it would be a big stretch. We're fortunate for once, living close to Utah. And in this instance, it gives us an advantage here because we don't have to stretch to argue that our trademark, our brand, our Trident E is involved in interstate commerce. We cross state lines frequently. And it really does give us an advantage.
That's the key, is we have students in Utah.
Yeah.
Bear River Service Manor lands, that would be an easy way to
I know some.
across state.
We have staff who live in Utah as well, so it really does help.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, we'll keep moving forward and I'll keep the board updated.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So we're going to move on to public comments. So I am going to, I'm going to remind everybody, if you're going to come up to the podium, please state your name and your address. If you're representing a group, if you guys can only pick one person kind of per idea or concern or topic, you know, you could take turns, but, you know, we will acknowledge that you're a group and that you share a concern, but we don't necessarily need to hear the same concern, you know, 10 times. But if you guys could be respectful of our time and try to get out what you need, and we're here to listen. So whoever would like to come up first.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. My name is Gail Morrow, and my son is Cohen, and he's a member, or he plays for football.
And what's your address?
230 Del Rio Drive, Evanston. I was going to give you Trona Valleys. 230 Del Rio Drive, and here in Evanston. Okay. The football team could not be here today, so Cohen and his team has written a letter. I'm really sorry. They wrote it on the bus, so that's what it looks like.
It's actually legible.
Yeah.
Pretty good for boys.
Right. Dear ladies and gentlemen of the school board, my name is Cohen Morrow, and I'm writing this letter on behalf of the 2022-2023 high school football team. We are respectfully requesting that the homecoming football game be changed from 3 p.m. back to 7 p.m. One reason we are requesting this change is so everyone in the community can come and support us. But the community doesn't just support us as a football team, they support the cheerleaders, drill team, and the marching band. Having the game at 3 p.m. makes it hard for parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, or any other supporters to get off of work to come to the game. Pushing the game back to 7 p.m. will allow for more community support. The second reason for all of us wanting to push the game back to 7 p.m. is so that we can have our dance back on Saturday night. For this reason, we can have a day date and actually enjoy our homecoming weekend. I know there has been some complaints in the past that parents don't want or like the idea of a day date, but these complaints don't even come close to the amount of parents and students that are in favor of the day dates. We can't let a few complaints ruin the homecoming experience for all of those who like the idea of a day date and having the dance moved back to Saturday night. Lastly, we as a football team would like to play homecoming under the lights. I also know for a fact that it's not just the football players that want to play homecoming under the lights, but so does the cheerleaders, the dance team, and the marching band, even all the parents and supporters. There is just a different energy and atmosphere when you play under the lights that really no one can explain. And just taking that one game away from all of us is just something I can't stand to see anymore, because we play every other game underneath the lights, so what's the difference for homecoming? I will end with this. I want to thank you all for your time, that you have been listening to this, and would please ask if you would all take this into deep consideration. Please think not just about the school administrators, but think about all the players, students, the student body, and the community who love the idea of having homecoming under the lights and having the actual high school football experience. Below my name on this letter are the members of the football team that fully support this statement. As parents, we want our kids to have the best high school experience as possible. We believe playing the game under the lights on Friday and having the dance on Saturday night will ensure that they have the best homecoming weekend as possible. We understand that this will cause some scheduling conflicts, but I'm sure that we can come up with good solutions to overcome these scheduling issues. We know that there is a dinner planned Friday night for the Red Devil Hall of Fame inductees. However, we believe that the 1997 state champion football team would want nothing more than to have our kids play and perform under the lights. After all, that championship team played under the lights during their magical season. Just think of how electric the night would be with the state championship team on the sidelines cheering on the Red Devils, everyone playing and performing under the lights and playing the first game on the brand new football field. And that's all that I have.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done.
Would anybody else like to share a different idea or concern?
Hi, I'm Allie Sanchez, and sorry, I don't really do things like this. My address is 127 Grandview Circle. I'm representing the EHS drill team. So last year as a dancer, we were running around a lot. Our homecoming is one of our bigger performances, and we spend months and months preparing and choreographing our routine along with a parade routine. So we have not only just one routine, but two. And with our big performance, we perform that 3 times, I think. And so we started straight after school to our parade performance, and from there we went straight to the homecoming game. And it was just very rushed, and it felt like it took away from what we really wanted from that night, or that day, sorry.
Doing great.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. You're fine.
Okay, and then right after the homecoming game, we went to, we had to leave early, a lot of us did, because we had makeup on, and we wanted to go, like, because we had hairspray in our hair too, and this is probably also on behalf of the cheerleaders, because they had to stay the whole game and cheer the football team on. And so all of us dancers left a little bit early to wipe off our makeup and do all that and shower and get ready for the dance, and it just, thank you. And it just felt very rushed, and so that's that. And then I'm also a part of the golf team, which last year, I understand Bubba can't change anything about it because of others' activities in other towns, but I had to make a decision last year between dance and golf, which was no one else's fault because it's scheduling and all that stuff. But I think that if the dance was Saturday, then we would be able to, the golf team would be able to travel back home and be at that dance, because yes, they can't be at the football game and the parade, but they would be able to participate in the dance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
name's Rachel Acey. I live at 234 Woodridge Lane. I'm a mom of a dancer as well, and a volleyball player, and I'm just really shocked at the conflicts that are happening. I'm super frustrated and disappointed. Or not, I don't know. I don't even know what my emotions are. But we're talking about bringing community together for this. This is a big week. I mean, there's movies of high school games in there about homecoming. I mean, it's a huge part of communities, and we've talked about how it's a big time for school spirit, community bonding, all of that. And then we schedule it on a weekend when our volleyball players can't come to any of it. It's really frustrating and disheartening to me as a parent. And I don't know who I should talk to, because I know this isn't your decision. I just talking. So I guess if there is any option at all, moving the dance to Saturday, that would at least give our girls an option to go to the dance. Because right now, with everything being on Friday, our senior girls who play volleyball don't get to go to the parade, they don't get to go to the game, they don't get to go to the dance, and that's not fair. They shouldn't have to choose. And I know Bubba said there was a golfer who chose to stay, and that happens, but can all of our senior girls really stay and not go play? I mean, would they not get in trouble? Is that an option? I don't know. I mean,
Will they be back
they
this Saturday?
shouldn't. Well, so that's what but not, and that's the problem. They're in Casper. It's not just Rock Springs or somewhere close. So even if the dance is Saturday, depending on how they do, they might not even get back for the dance anyways. And so when they look back on their senior year of homecoming, or, you know, we're talking about Hall of Fame, all of that, what are our girls going to think of? Which I know it's not the whole school, it's a handful, but what are they going to think of their senior year of homecoming? They're not going to be here, and they're going to miss out on that, and that's, so I don't know what the option is for that. I think maybe those girls should have an option to, if they choose to stay and be a part of that school activity. I don't know. I don't know why it was chosen for that weekend. I know scheduling's hard. I know your job is hard. Maybe not a perfect weekend, but having them gone for 2 days in a row, clear across the state, I feel like that could have maybe been picked a little better. So maybe even if it's just for future. It didn't happen last year. It happened when Ellie was a sophomore, and I was brokenhearted for those seniors. I was sad that Ellie missed it her sophomore year, but she was a sophomore, and you don't feel like you have much say then. She's a senior this year, so I do have to stand and say this isn't right. They shouldn't have to pick and choose. I understand this tournament's important, but that's a lot to ask these girls to miss out on. And I think doing it under the lights, I agree with everything that's been said. And if anything, that gives the girls an option to possibly get back, but it's Casper, so maybe they wouldn't anyways. So I just hope maybe something can be done about that. So that's all.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else for public comment before we close? Okay, thank you everybody for sharing your thoughts and your ideas, okay?
Let's move on to our action items. Our first action item is our personnel.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I'd like to recommend that we approve the following resignations. Chris Brown, Caitlin Cantrell, Jonathan Stiff Cantrell, Tim Harold, Rachel Boyer.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the listed resignations?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Joel. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Madam Chair, I recommend that you approve the following leave of absence for Rose Stark.
Okay.
Any questions about what a leave of absence is? Leave of absence is for a period of time, it's a year, there's no paid salary. They can continue their benefits at their own cost, and then if they return to their status of seniority and their leave. If they don't return, their leave is paid.
Okay.
Can we close those doors?
They're going upstairs.
Oh, okay.
Just wait a minute.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve the leave of absence for Rose Stark?
So I've got a question on the leave of absence in this case here. She is obviously going to CBRV. Is her intention to come back after a year, or is it just to see if she likes that position or not?
We hope, yes. Yeah,
All of the
answer is
above?
yes. We hope she comes back.
Well, I agree.
Yeah.
It just seems, leave of absence usually for something else. I'm going to go continue my education. I'm going to go take another job and then decide whether I like it or not, so I can have my job if I want to come back.
One thing a leave of absence does allow is, since she is a tenured teacher, she would be guaranteed a spot, but not once she left. So that was one of the issues, is she doesn't know if she'll like it. In the past, we've not allowed these to happen. I think Rose is the type of employee we'd like to get back, and whatever we can do to leverage that. Again, there's no cost to the district with this, and she won't be purchasing health insurance because she'll get it through Part D.
So we hire a special ed teacher, bring him in, Rose decides she wants to come back, then we've got to terminate that special ed teacher?
No. We're always looking for special ed teachers. There'll be a position.
There'll be a position.
It may not be at Davis, but there will be a special ed position. In the past, we've hired those as temporary contracts for a year, those who are coming in, but with special ed, there's no worry. We'll have a place for them.
Okay, is there a motion regarding the leave of absence request?
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion.
Okay, any further discussion? Krista?
No, Krista.
Okay. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Madam Chair, third category is we recommend that you approve the following contracts. I would add that this represents, to have this many at this time of the year is really tough duty and good duty from our principals to get these filled. Samuel Symes, Tiffany Schnoll, Adrian Ashley, Kristen Trujillo, McKay Trujillo, Rick O'Driscoll, Pat Fackrell, Nathan Conrad, Isaac Wilkinson, and Mitchell Jetson. Recommend you approve those contracts.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Madam Chair, the last personnel item is that you approve the contract extension of Superintendent Ryan Thomas, as discussed in executive session.
Who?
Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Second by Joel. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, now on to student discipline.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we recommend that you approve the meet and confer agreement.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
hold on, wait a minute.
Sorry.
What?
I jumped down.
She
Being
skipped B.
confirmed.
Oh,
So, go ahead.
okay. That you approve the meet and confer agreement that was worked out between the Evanston Education Association and the school board that you've had a chance to review for the last several weeks. But we recommend that you approve it and appreciate the support and the work of the board and also the Evanston Education Association.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the meet and confer agreement?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Now we're on to student discipline.
Madam Chair, members of the board, recommend that you approve the student discipline that was discussed in executive session.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the student discipline as was discussed in executive session?
So moved.
I second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, so the next item is our approve the reopening plan, safe return plan.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this is an interesting one. If you remember when we returned from COVID, we were required by the state to have a reopening plan. Last year, we were required to have an opening plan, and now these plans continue as part of the ARP ESSER funds. So we have to have this plan in place. It has to be prominently displayed on our website, which it is. It goes over conditions of basically if COVID returns. We've updated all of the links. Right now, there's really, I've removed everything in terms of language. Our expectation is that we're going to go next year in person, full-time, very few conditions except for we'll continue to disinfect and clean our buildings at a higher level. We will follow the recommendations of public health as approved by the school board. If we are encouraged to go to Tier 2, that's a board decision, and we would go into those steps that Tier 2 would provide. Same thing with Tier 3. If there was some reason why we wouldn't have school, it would go to an adaptive learning plan like we did before. Again, use of those ARP-ESSER funds require that this plan is in place, and it is updated twice a year. So you will see this again probably in December next year, that we've updated our plan. It is updated, you can go look at it, but I think we're just moving ahead with this. And expectation is there are some portions of this that talk about how we use the ARP-ESSER funds. None of that's changed. Our expectation is we'll use it 20% for the underrepresented students, and then the rest will be for a long list of expenditures. Most of that is salary for retention and stabilization. So that's what those funds are for. That's in there too. So I encourage you, if you're not have anything to do one night, as you go through the plan, and it'll help you get a good night's rest.
It's only 19 pages. That's all.
Yeah, it's only 19 pages.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the reopening plan?
Madam Chair, so moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. And then our last action item is the first reading of policy GCBD, professional staff leaves and absences.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I recommend that you approve that policy change. Basically, it just removes the sabbatical leave from policy GCBD.
Okay.
So, oh, sorry, discussion.
Is there, well, if you want to have a question, have a question.
Okay. So was there any changes as defining who immediate family was? Is that change need to be
I thought there was
moved?
on the draft that I saw.
I seen something that came across from
If there isn't, it
Mr.
needs to be
Phillips.
modified because the grammar on it is terrible.
That could be.
well, that's what I was
I'll look at
asking
it.
about.
We haven't changed what immediate family is. It's still the same difference. What we have in our policies is immediate family and immediate household. And so that's why we outline everyone. Basically, immediate family is mom, dad, brother and sister, stepbrother and sister, stepmom, step-grandma, step-grandma. It's
All those people that were listed on there?
yes.
The reason I thought it was an addition was because it was underlined.
Oh, I'll have to take a peek at it. but
Yeah,
we
it
haven't
just came
changed
across from Mr. Phillips, and
Yeah.
that's what I was looking at. It was red, and it was
Oh, highlight red.
highlighted in red, and then there was a
Yeah,
kind of a
I think
clarification, and it came from him, and I was like, going, was that supposed to be?
We'll
Okay.
look at it.
I was asking you about.
If it's
Just
if
for
it's
the-
good,
Exactly, because I
we'll
read it
change it
exactly
for
as it was
second
in there,
reading.
so I thought, oh, maybe No one, Jeff's though, was just that blurb about all the people.
Yeah,
So that's why I was like,
that
that's
was-
exactly, I read it word for
Oh,
word.
no.
so I was
Anyway.
confused.
Do we have any employees that are great-grandparents? That's not in there. I'm just saying, there might be
Yeah, we
great-grandkids.
have a lot of great grandparents.
I agree.
So, but we can.
probably
We can
work
approve
that
the first
out.
reading.
On a
We
case by
can.
case basis.
We can. Okay, so if we
I
can
was
fix
just-
that.
Sorry. Our leave policy is very generous.
Yeah.
And our bereavement policy is very generous. So we take care of our people.
Okay, so is there a motion, I even lost where it was, sorry. Is there a motion to approve the first reading on policy GCBD, professional staff leaves and absences?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, so we're done with our action item, and our last, before our executive session is our board round table. Any general comments from the board?
anything you really like to share?
That was good participation tonight. It's good to see people come together and have open mind. You know, it's difficult, but that's how problems get resolved. You have open mind and work together and get a good resolution.
Well, I'm glad to see the parents and as passionate as they are about their kids. I think that's a good thing, you know, and hopefully it moves forward and they can stay as passionate on other things outside a football game at times, so.
Anything else?
I'm good.
Okay. Well, with nothing left, we'll go ahead and go on to our next item, which is our executive session. Is there a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we're gonna
Do
move.
we need to come back out there
Madam
to
Chair, we
adjourn?
will adjourn from executive
From
session.
executive
So there will be no further business.
Yeah, so we'll be done. We won't be coming back here.
And so go home.
You can stay if you like. Go away.